Which two do you think I'm going to focus on? Hi everyone, I'm Roberta. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist, specifically a clinical dietitian. I wrote this video for you 5 months ago, but never got around to filming it because of the stress of my current job, but also because of feeling insecure about how I sound now that I have to wear these Invisalign liners on my teeth for the next year and a half. I didn't want to get the Invisalign, but I had to do something because I had chipped a couple teeth, wasn't able to chew my food all the way, and if I didn't do something, my health would get worse. So it made me think about how sometimes we don't want to change the way we're eating, but unless we change the way we're eating, our health might get worse. So I'm going to get back into making videos for you, and please overlook the fact that I might not be able to pronounce certain words very well. So 6 months ago, Janie had written in the comments, how about a video about soup recommendations? And I thought, that's a great idea, Janie, let's do it. So you're pressed for time and you can't make homemade soup where you could control all the elements of the soup, and you need to go grab some soup from the store. What is it that you look for on the food label? Do you look for calories, fat, carbohydrate, protein, or sodium? Well, in this video, we're going to look at 2 of these. Which 2 do you think I'm going to focus on? Calories, fat, carbohydrate, protein, or sodium? It's going to be protein and sodium. So let's get to the green screen. Before we get started, I just want to say hi to Colette. Hi Colette, how are you? Colette's been watching the videos. She's been making good food choices. And I also want to say thank you to everybody who's watching. I hope that these videos provide you support, and I hope that they help you improve your health. So when we're at the grocery store, we have a lot of products that we can choose from. Let's look at this one. This Progresso chicken noodle soup. One column is per serving, the other column is for the whole can. When we look at the per serving column, we can see that the sodium is 680 milligrams and the protein is 7 grams. Is that enough? Is that too much? Is that too little? I know that the sodium, they'll give a percentage, but if you're eating 4 times a day, I think it's good to have a number to look at, a limit to try to get to or to keep to. So let's first establish some guidelines before we look at any more soups. And let's look at the American Heart Association guidelines to figure out what our limits are. In the second line, I hope you can see that it says the American Heart Association recommends no more than 2,300 milligrams a day of sodium and moving toward an ideal of no more than 1,500 milligrams of sodium per day. Let's focus on that initial number of 2,300 milligrams a day of sodium. And I like to divide that number into 4, and so you end up with around 500 to 600 milligrams of sodium per meal if you're eating 4 times a day. Well, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, you could divide this into 2 snacks, but it's an easy rule of thumb to keep us in the range of where we're supposed to be. You might agree, you might disagree, do what works for you. We're going to use this concept for the rest of the food labels. The next one is Campbell's vegetable soup. We can see the sodium quantity is, this is for 1 serving, 890 milligrams. So that's definitely more than the 500 to 600 milligrams. If you did choose this, then maybe you just have a lower sodium breakfast. Now Campbell's makes another product called Healthy Request, where they reduce the sodium. You can see the sodium is 410 milligrams per serving. The whole can, I believe, is 2 servings or 2.5 servings. And the protein, we were looking at that too. Protein is only 3 grams. So although this is good for sodium, our protein is lacking. We would have to have chicken, fish, beef, but not seasoned chicken or seasoned beef or seasoned fish because the sodium is already in the soup. But how much protein should we be having in a day? Well, let's check with the Mayo Clinic to see what they say about protein. This is probably very hard to see on a cell phone. Let me zero in on a couple of the paragraphs in the center, and they indicate that once we reach 40 to 50 years of age. We need to increase our protein to 1 to 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. In the second paragraph, they say how people who exercise should have 1.1 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. Excess protein would be more than 2 grams per kilogram of body weight a day, and that's also what Harvard Medical School says. I know that's hard to read, so I hand wrote it. You can see a little bit better that they're saying to start out with 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram body weight. If you exercise regularly, 1.1 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram body weight. And Harvard Medical School agrees with the Mayo Clinic, and they say we don't need more than 2 grams of protein per kilogram body weight. And if you're in the process of losing weight, the weight you're supposed to use is your adjusted body weight. And you can learn how to figure out your adjusted body weight by watching this video that I did a while back. And a special note, at one of the conferences I attended a couple years ago, there was a nurse from the intensive care unit who said, over half of the people over 65 are protein deficient. And she said that she would have everybody in the intensive care unit given 1.3 grams of protein per kilogram body weight to help with their wound healing after surgery and to help boost their immune system. And that falls into the range of a regular exerciser as well. And I know a lot of people don't want to do those calculations. So if you have a requirement of 1.3 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram body weight, and you weigh 140 pounds, here's the range of what you need in a day. If you weigh 165 pounds, here's the range of the protein you need a day. 180 pounds, here's the range of the protein you need a day. And when you divide the averages by 4, you see that that's about 22 grams of protein per meal, 26 grams of protein per meal, 28 grams of protein per meal if you're eating 4 times a day. So a great rule of thumb, keep your protein between 20 to 30 grams of protein 4 times a day. Have breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then a 4th time, drink a protein shake. Protein is necessary for increasing our immune system, for fighting infection, for making new blood cells, for making new body cells, for making hormones, and we do this daily. So you need to get your protein every single day in order for your body to function optimally, fight off disease, make hormones, etc. Now we go on to this soup, and they have in big print on the front 20 grams of protein. But what is the sodium? Remember, on the label, we have a column for per serving, which is half the can, and then the other column per can. Well, let's look at the column for the entire can. What is the sodium? We see that the sodium is 1,240 milligrams. Oh my gosh, that is 2 meals worth. The only way I would want to have that is if my breakfast was incredibly low in sodium, oatmeal with fruit and protein powder. That's probably the only way that you could balance a can of this and a breakfast. Let's quickly look at this ramen. And with this, we have the seasoning packet inside, so you don't have to use all the seasoning if you don't want to. We see that half of the seasoning packet would give us 780 milligrams, and the entire seasoning packet would give us 1,590 milligrams. How's the protein? Well, we didn't reach our 20 to 30 grams of protein at one time, so we would have to add an egg, egg whites, chicken that's low sodium, fish low sodium, beef low sodium, etc. You know, this is going to be a really long video because there's one more thing that I need to show you. It doesn't have to do with sodium or protein, but I noticed that this contains palm oil. Hi, and I need to show you something about palm oil, and you might agree and you might disagree. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has this research on their page that was done in 2006 by Tufts University. Tufts University is in Boston, Massachusetts, and they are one of the top nutrition programs in the country. So they did this study back in 2006, and this article was posted though in 2009. But according to the study, they proved that palm oil is not a healthy substitute for trans fat. They took men and women who had moderately high cholesterol levels, and they first had them eat for 35 days a diet that was containing a lot of partially hydrogenated soybean oil. Then the next 35 days they had palm oil. Then the next 35 days they had canola oil. And then the next 35 days they had soybean oil. Well, when you see partially hydrogenated soybean oil, they took a healthy soybean oil, partially hydrogenated it, and that turns it into a trans fat. So whenever you see partially hydrogenated oil, know that is a trans fat. You see, when you add hydrogens to something, hydrogenate them, the hydrogens can attach either across from each other or next to each other. If the hydrogens attach across from each other, like in this trans configuration, it's a trans fat. If the hydrogens attach next to each other, that's a cis configuration. But when you partially hydrogenate something, add hydrogen to the oil, they add across from each other, forming a trans configuration. That's why it's called a trans fat. So partially hydrogenated oils are trans fats. So in this study that was done at Tufts, they found that at the end of the study, consuming either palm oil or partially hydrogenated soybean oil resulted in similar unfavorable levels of LDL cholesterol. So they're saying back in 2006 that palm oil is not a healthy substitute for trans fat. And if you have a second to pause this video, go to your kitchen. If you have any protein bars, ice cream bars, creamers, look and see if there is palm oil in the ingredients. Because I did an experiment on myself about 2012, which was similar to this, and I confirmed for myself that palm oil does indeed increase my cholesterol and LDL by about 20 points. So I try to avoid palm oil and palm kernel oil, and I'm really saddened to see how many protein bars actually have palm oil. And I don't know if the manufacturers are aware that palm oil raises cholesterol just like trans fat does. When I saw this in the store, I thought, oh, let me check this out because this was a very interesting looking package. I wanted to see its sodium, protein, and also now the ingredients. I wanted to see if there's any palm oil in here. So the sodium we can see is 1,300 milligrams. The protein is 10 grams. So if you were to have this, you would need to have another meal in the day. Remember, if in general we're trying to stick to 500 to 600 milligrams per meal, you would need to have another meal in the day that had no sodium. But before we say anything, let's check out the ingredients. And there we see vegetable oil, specifically palm oil. If this company could just take out the palm oil and cut down on the sodium, I'd buy that. Now, is there anything in the store where we don't have to cut down on the sodium or add more protein? Well, check this one out. Chef Wu. It says 20 grams of protein. Let's check out the label. The sodium you can see there, it says, 1,130 milligrams. Well, again, if we're trying to keep it to 500 to 600 milligrams per meal, maybe we can just take some of the seasoning out before we make it, or have a much lower sodium count at a different meal. But the protein there is 20 grams, so that fits between the 20 to 30 grams of protein that we're looking for. I just want to make sure that there's no palm oil in the ingredients, and they use organic sunflower oil. Oh, and we see the protein comes from pea protein. And the final product I saw from Snapdragon, let's see what its sodium content is. Sodium is 980 milligrams, and the protein is 4 grams. And I know that there's no palm oil because the saturated fat is 0. For something to be 0 saturated fat, the product has to be less than half a gram of saturated fat. So I know that if there's any palm oil in here, it's incredibly low. So I would be okay trying this. Speaking of trying the soups, when I was at the grocery store, I picked up these 3. So I'm excited to try them. In the next video, I'm going to do a taste test of these 3 soups. I'm not sure if I'm going to take out half the sodium before I try it or leave it in. I'm not even sure if there's a seasoning packet in there or if the sodium is mixed in with the noodles, but we'll find out. I'll show you at the next video. So please subscribe, hit the bell notification if you want to be notified when the next video comes out. I hope that you'll start looking at the sodium in your foods, in your soups. Maybe you'll want to keep each meal to about 500 to 600 milligrams of sodium. Or if you have more than that at a meal, then the next meal just try to keep it lower than that. And then also with the protein, I hope that you will try to get between 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal, or more if that's what you need. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, then have a protein shake for a snack. Whatever you do, whatever you decide, you might agree with the information here, you might not. Whatever the case, take good care of yourself. Bye.